advisable that you skip those courses of English 1, English 2, because you already have a very good level. And when you have the certificate, you're gonna be able to homologate that even if you don't have the certificate right now. You can do it in a couple of years, and you're gonna save a lot of time, because I know those courses are super tedious, and more if you already know about the stuff.
Yeah, like the first forum, the first activity was like I don't like, and not to brag about it, but I was like I felt like I was wasting my time in some
Yeah,
like
it's a completely
in some
waste
sense.
of time. So
Yeah,
if
I
for the
was telling
next time,
my friends and family, it's like if I'm an engineer and on in first semester you ask me to do like 2 + 2 or 6 × 6 kind of um, mathematic additions and multiplications, and it's like that's not the kind of answers and not the kind of classes that I want to take in this moment. So yeah, I hope to take the new certification as soon as possible, but with the situation with coronavirus and everything, I haven't really gotten the time to investigate where to take it in the city where I'm living right now.
all right. So let's continue with today's topic. So
Okay.
today's topic is about punctuation. Now, I'm sure you know punctuation is a very wide topic, so it will be impossible to talk about all the signs of punctuation in just one lesson. So for this, I'm just gonna talk about the comma, and even that the comma is a very comprehensive topic. So I'm gonna focus on one very specific use of the comma. So let's talk first about the levels of writing. How can I know that you're a very good writer or a very poor writer or just beginning in the field of writing? Well, turns out there's some levels to writing, and they're all related to punctuation. So there's level 1. If you're a level 1 writer, you know how to use the period. If you're a level 2, you know how to use the full stop and the comma. If you're a level 3, you know how to use the semicolon. If you're a level 4, you know how to use the colon. If you're a level 5, you know how to use the ellipsis. Do you know what is an ellipsis?
I don't remember in this moment.
Okay, let me try to draw it right now. So an ellipsis are just 3 dots.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't remember the name.
Okay. And finally, we had hyphens. Hyphens are this. The parentheses, quotation marks, and resources to highlight. So for example, if
dash.
well, in grammar you call it hyphen, but dash is more for informatics. And
yeah. The thing is that like in the schools where I have worked, like we teach like basic informatics grammar. So add. So in my mind it's like, okay, that's the score or the dash.
Yeah, that's right. And finally, we have resources to highlight. For example, if you wanna highlight some subject, well, you're gonna use a combination of the period, of the full stop, the semicolon, or the colon. And notice how there's an increment in complexity within these signs. So it goes from 0 to 6, and we call that complexity. Ideally, you need to take into account that to achieve level 2 of writing, you need to already know to use very well the period. And that is the same case if you if you will want to master the level 5, the ellipsis, well, you will probably need to have a very good usage of the colon. And that's it for the levels of writing. Now let me check if I got someone here. Okay. All right. That's it for the levels of writing. Now, in this lesson, I'm going to talk about the comma. So there are two types of comma. One is called just the comma. It's a single comma. And usually you put it between elements just to separate ideas. And there is a second type of comma. And we call that a pair of commas. And usually we use those as an opening comma and a closing comma. So let me draw this as an example. We have
maybe that one is very recurrent for giving explanations, right?
I didn't get it because I lost you. It was intermittent. Can you please say that again?
Can you listen to me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was saying that I think I have seen the second comma used a lot, like in TOEFL test, especially in the structure section, and it's
purpose
is to serve like an explanation of the topic that they are talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we talk about this in terms of complexity, this is level 1 and this is level 2. So you're right. If you were taking the TOEFL, you will probably seeing more often a pair of commas than just the comma. So the way the first type of comma works is, imagine you have a number and then the comma, and you notice it's separating things. Then the pair of commas, you have number 1, comma, and 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a comma. These are the openings and the closings of as a group. You're no longer separating, but you're probably talking about something. And I'm gonna explain to you that in more detail. So this is the opening, and this is the closing comma. All right, now let's talk about the first type of the comma, and we call that just the comma. So the way we talk about punctuation is relating the usage of the sign to some examples. So example number first. We use the comma, just the comma, for enumeration. For example, Mark has a cow, a pig, a dog, and a rabbit. It was just like 1, 2, 3, 4. We call that enumeration. We also use it for verb omission. If we don't use the verb, for example, you to the bed. You notice I didn't use any verb right there. Or right here, if I'm already using the verb in a previous phrase, but in the second phrase I'm not using the verb. I am a carpenter. My brother, a mechanic. Or this one. I prefer rock. She, metal. So what did it have in common? That we don't have any single verb. And so when we don't have verb, we replace that with a comma. That is a verb omission. Now, we also use the comma when we have to talk about formulas. Formulas is just a very fancy way to say when you're starting a letter or an email. For example, Dear Mary, I want to talk about what happened today. This is how you open an email or a letter, and we call that formula to address the subject that we're writing to. That is very simple. Now, we also have the vocative case, and out of the examples that we just talked so far, I want you to remember this as much as possible, because this one is usually the most is hard to get when you're writing. So the vocative case is just another fancy way to address this subject. And before that, we use the comma. So for example, do you understand, Jonathan? Notice how it's without comma, it would be, do you understand, Jonathan? Many people do that mistake. So when you're mentioning the subject, it's always good to put a comma. Another example, this was at the end of the sentence. This is at the beginning of the sentence. So for example, Julie, please answer me. And this is as opposed as Julie, please answer me. Which, if we speak it, it sounds kind of alright, which is partially the reason as to why we don't use so much this comma. However, when we write, it's extremely important to use the comma after a subject, or in this case, before. That is called the vocative case. When we talk about the subject, we're not only talking about people, but we can also talk about abstract concepts. For example, English. English is my subject here. So in English, comma, we don't say hola. That's another example. Or another abstraction of, another concept of abstraction is, it's true, dear. It's true, dear. And this one, I want to, mate. Now this one is kind of funny because if you don't use the comma, it will sound like I want to, mate. So that is why it's extremely important. Out of these cases that we just saw, the vocative case is gonna prevent you doing some of these mistakes. I have another example here, and it says, I like cooking my family and my pets. Use the comma, don't be a psycho. So where do you think you should use the comma right here? I like cooking my family and my pets.
I like cooking, my family, comma, and my pets.
So where's the first comma? After which word?
After cooking.
So I like cooking, yeah.
My
And
family,
then?
comma, and
my pets. All right,
pets.
very good. So that makes a huge difference. I like cooking, my family, and my pets. You got that right. Now we got another example here. Let's eat grandma versus let's eat grandma. Here, what type of example of the comma I'm using? Is it the enumeration, omission of the verb, the vocative case?
It is the vocative case.
And why is it the vocative case?
Because you're referring to a person. A subject.
That's right. You got it. So yeah, we use the comma because I'm talking to a subject. I'm addressing the person I'm speaking to. Now, we also have pairs of commas, and this is type 2. We call this type 2. And let me go back. Remember, a pair of commas was an opening and a closing, like this one. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma, and then 6. So we use that type 2 comma when we need to offer more information about the subject or about the topic that we're talking about. We call that explicative apposition. Apposition is just a Latin word, apposto, which means nearby or close to. So you're putting that information close to the subject so that you bring more information about him. Now we have some examples right here. For example, Mary, the teacher, likes video game, because it could be Mary, your sister, Mary, the scientist. So in this case, we need to make sure that we're talking about the teacher. She likes video games. So I'm using right here an opening comma and a closing comma. Now, how do we call this thing that is between the commas? Well, that is the apposition. This is the subject, the apposition, and the object. Right here is the verb. All right, another example.
Can you repeat what's the name of it?
Apposition.
Apposition. Okay.
Yeah, it's right here, this one. Another example is Fred. Then look at the apposition. Who often cheats? What kind of Fred? Well, that one who often cheats is just harming himself. The predicate is just harming himself. We had the opening comma and the closing comma. Another example. My niece. What kind of niece? That one who's wearing a yellow jumpsuit. So opening comma, closing comma. What's that thing that we have right here between the commas? Is the apposition. And then we have the predicate. Is playing in the living room. So my niece, which niece wearing a yellow jumpsuit, is playing in the living room. And finally, $200. I think. What kind of $200? Those that you're very sure about, or those that you think about that you're not so sure? Well, I think this is the apposition. Is sufficient. $200. I think is sufficient. You got that? The pairs of commas?
Yeah.
Great. Now, not always we can use appositions, because appositions, here we're talking about that it's offering more information about the subject that we're talking about. But sometimes subjects already carry much information that it's not necessary to talk about. For example, I have here, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, declared war to China. I no longer need to use the comma right here. I can simply say Donald Trump, the President of the United States, comma. I just need this one because it's a vocative case, declare war to China. Now, why don't we use the apposition here? Because the United States, we know that only has one president. So Donald Trump, which, well, it's obviously that he is the president. So there's no more than one president. So we no longer need to use the comma here. And I'm gonna highlight it with next. This one is not necessary. This one is necessary. All right, now the book that I borrow from you is excellent. Now, the thing right here in this sentence is that I have a conjunction, and it's that.
It's a compound sentence, right?
Not really. Well, we call this a sentence because, well, this is the phrase and this is the dependent clause. Dependent clause. It's just a simple sentence. So I'm using this conjunction to signal that the book belongs to this segment of the phrase. That I borrow from you is excellent. Imagine if I were to put a comma right here. The book, comma, that I borrow from you is excellent. We don't need to use that because the that is already signaling a linking between those ideas. And finally, we have students who cheat only harm themselves. Now here, who is acting as the same way as that. Is conjunction, is making a conjunction between the subject and the predicate. So, students who cheat only harm themselves. Imagine if I were to put a comma. Students who cheat only harm themselves. It doesn't make so much sense. So whenever you see that, who, which, I get it. It's compounding the two phrases, but in grammar we call that a conjunction. So that's it for the whenever those cases when we don't have to use the vocative case, the appositions. I'm sorry. Now I have here some exercises that I gathered for you. So for the first sentence, I'd like you to tell me, where do we have to put the commas? Taxi cabs that are dirty are illegal in some cities.
After dirty.
That are dirty are illegal. All right. Well, in this case, we don't use the comma because are is compounding those two ideas.
Okay.
Now, what about this one? Oil, which is lighter than water, rises to the surface.
Doesn't need it.
That's right. Doesn't need it. Oil, which is lighter than water, rises to the surface. How about this one? Madame d'Astel was an attractive, gracious lady.
Doesn't need it as well.
That's right. Very well. Now, nice is a word with many meanings, and some of them are contradictory. You got it?
He doesn't need it?
All right. Well, in this case, it's kind of hard to think about it, but
Yeah.
this is a subject. Needs is a word with many meanings. So this is acting like just one subject. If we think about this, imagine if it was not needs is a word with many meanings, but let's say Mark or Bob. Well, I'm using the vocative case because this one is a subject. Nice is a word with many meanings, comma, and some of them are contradictory. So there I need the comma. And finally, Mark Twain's early novels, I believe, stand the test of time.
After novels.
Okay, early novels, after novels. All right. Mark Twain's early novels, I believe, stand the test of time. Do you think we need another one, or it's enough with that one?
After I.
That's right. So we need an apposition because I need to specify that I'm not very sure about it. So that's why I use an apposition. So it's gonna stay like this. Mark Twain's early novels, I believe, stand the test of time. You did very well. Don't worry about this one because it was a very complex subject. So let me remind it right here that this is a subject, just one subject. All right. So every lesson, the OLC, the online language community, requires us to talk about one particular topic. And in this case, today's topic is stress in teens. So having that in mind, that a good paragraph is about 4 sentences. And what you just learned about the commas, most notably, the one that I really want you to remember is the vocative case. Do you remember, Jonathan? Julie, please answer me. Having that in mind, I want you to write a paragraph about stress in teens. You can write it on the chat here in Skype, and I'm gonna read it when you're finished.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm gonna mute myself so I don't come as distracting. I'll be back in gonna give you 10 minutes for that, all right?
It's only for sentences?
You can make it 5 or 3, but ideally a good paragraph is 4 sentences.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, I get one message. Oh, 1 second. All right, I got it. Okay. Stress in teens is rising. I thought that was a comma. A rising problems that faces the new generations with more frequency. Some signs that help us identify these conditions are very good use of the colon, sleeping too little or too eating comfort. Well, these two. Why are you using a comma right there?
Where?
Let me share my screen. 1 second. Right here. Are sleeping too little or too, and then there's a
Oh, I
comma.
was going to write too much.
Ah, so it's a typo, don't worry about that. Eating comfort or eating too little. That's right. Comma, having low energy and behaving aggressively. Some of its causes can rely on peer pressure, lack of relationships with their friends, school, and social trends. Teenagers, very well use of the vocative. In my opinion, no, this was an opposition. In my opinion, very well, should take counseling and have support to overcome the situation. But sadly, okay, but here before but, you need to use a comma. But sadly, comma, this one is good. Mental health and psychological problems have a huge stigma in Latino communities as well as Afro-American. That was excellent. And it was also interesting. You do something that is talking about beyond the scope of the topic. That's very good in the case of the septo. This is what people are looking for. Now, I want to go back to the presentation because you mentioned something quite important, and that is the case of the complex sentences as compared as compound sentences. So here, students who cheat only harm themselves. This is only one sentence. And we call that a complex sentence because we don't have a verb, but this is certainly given information about the subject. Who cheat only harm themselves. Now, in the case of compound sentences, you need to have two independent sentences. So this is one, and let's imagine this is our other sentence. And normally compounds, yes, are linked with a conjunction, for example, and here after this and, I can do my other independent sentence. For example, students who cheat only harm themselves. And the book that I borrow from you is excellent. So this right here is one complex sentence. This right here is two complex sentences, 1 and 2, and they're conjoined by a conjunction. That's a compound sentence as compared to one complex sentence. Is that clear?
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah,
All right.
I think like I need to review the concepts because I think like I had them mixed in my mind.
All right. Yeah. I also have a book for you that I'd like to share just to end this class, and it's called Grammar for Writers. And it's a very different type of grammar as compared to grammar for students of English, where we know what's the verb, the subject. This one is more about punctuation. You're gonna really like it. That's my Google Drive, and you can find the book right there. All right, it was my pleasure. So this is the end of the lesson. I appreciate your attendance, and I hope you have a good day.
I hope you have a good day too. Thank you very much for your class.
All right, appreciate it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.